My name is Brian O'Hara, B-R-I-A-N, O''H-A-R-A. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. Approximately 2:21 today, officers from the 3rd Precinct responded to this location on the report of a shooting. Officers arriving on the scene found a small homeless encampment along the railroad tracks behind me, the 4400 block of Hiawatha and Snelling Avenue. Officers located 2 adult males on the ground inside of the encampment with gunshot wounds to the head. Officers immediately provided medical care until fire and EMS arrive. Despite all life-saving efforts, these 2 individuals were pronounced deceased at the scene. Officers also located an adult female inside the encampment with life-threatening gunshot wounds. She was transported to Hennepin Healthcare Medical Center, where she remains in critical condition. Based on the descriptions provided to officers, 3 individuals were detained from the scene. 1 individual was involved in a brief foot chase with law enforcement, and he was apprehended while in possession of a firearm. Those 3 individuals were transported to our investigative unit, where we have now ruled them out as suspects in this murder. Investigators are working to determine the sequence of events exactly as they happened here. It obviously still remains in its preliminary stages, and we're asking anyone with information related to this to please contact the Minneapolis Police or the anonymous tip line. This is the 2nd shooting at a homeless encampment in the 3rd Precinct this weekend, and it's the 2nd triple shooting. Yesterday we had a shooting at a small encampment on 15th Avenue, which resulted in 1 person dying and 2 people with critical injuries going to the hospital. So it highlights how deeply dangerous these encampments are. We know within the confines of the 3rd Precinct over the last month until this weekend, already 13% of all crime, 19% of all gun crime, and almost 1/4 of all shooting incidents, shooting victims in the 3rd Precinct happen within 500 feet of a homeless encampment. And obviously the 3rd Precinct, this part of the city, has the greatest concentration of homeless encampments. So it remains a very serious public safety issue, not a safe place for folks who are here, and also a significant place for, with raising significant public concerns for residents around these encampments. We know as soon as these encampments move in, we have a significant increase in crime in the general area. And then once we are able to clear them, crime generally does go down. So we are aware of the problems related to our encampments. I'll pass it off to the mayor.
This is another incredibly tragic and sad situation where more of our residents, more of our city members, our neighbors have been killed. And it's not a coincidence that this has happened at an encampment. We have seen a significant increase in both homicides and shootings specifically around encampments, and notably, there are areas of the city, even areas of the city that have traditionally had higher crime rates where crime has dropped that don't have encampments. The north side, for instance, we've seen crime drop over this last year. Our officers are doing an amazing job, yet what we see is shootings and crime happening within the immediate vicinity of an encampment. This is not about a lack of shelter. It's not even most of the time about a lack of housing. The issues that we're seeing in terms of crime and violence, it's about fentanyl. It is about a drug that takes a hold of your body and your mind like nothing that we've ever seen before. We need to be doubling down to make sure that it is not easy to continuously set up and then move these homeless encampments. We also need to be working with a number of other jurisdictional partners, with our county and our state. It should not matter whose property it is. It shouldn't matter whether it's the city's property, private property, MnDOT property, or county property. We should all be working together to make sure that people have a route to shelter and housing if they are willing to take it. But if not, homeless encampments are simply not the answer. You've heard me ad nauseum say this exact same thing, and yet again, we have more people that are dead. So we need to be honest and realistic about what is happening right now. We need to call a spade. This is not about a lack of shelter. This is about fentanyl. We need to put an end to this because people are dying. It has a huge impact on these surrounding neighborhoods. Most of the time, by the way, are lower income neighborhoods. And so I appreciate the chief's work on this. I appreciate the work that both our police as well as our homeless response team have been doing over the last several months. This is sad and tragic, but we're going to work our way through it.
So I'll open it up at this time to questions related to this murder. And then secondly, I want to give an update to the situation we have on Grand Avenue.
If we know what the problems are, why can't we get ahead of it? What are the biggest challenges in kind of getting ahead of something like this and making it so we don't have to have a news conference like this?
Yeah, so it's a complex issue. Obviously, it depends on where the property is, whether it's on private property versus city property or some other government entity. And I can just tell you, one of the most frustrating things that the police officers are dealing with when they're coming here and responding to complaints kind of around these things is this situation where, despite however many times we have cleared encampments and use a whole lot of resources around the city to do that we do have folks and other encampments popping up elsewhere. So that was the case for sure yesterday. I'm not that familiar with the history of this one here, but at least the one yesterday, we had a large encampment on Franklin Avenue that was underneath the underpass there. And that small encampment that's been there the last couple of weeks was a result of clearing the encampment on Franklin Avenue. So that's both a frustration of our residents around these issues, but also a frustration from the police officers who have been trying to maintain these clearing.
Yeah, and I'll add a few more things. Just to put some statistics to back up what I said previously, this is not about a lack of shelter and housing. We are presently producing 8.5 times the amount of deeply affordable housing that we did just a number of years ago. 8.5 times. We have added new shelter beds and added to our shelter system. And at the same time, yes, we've seen homeless encampments expand in a few places throughout the city. And to be clear, the primary driving issue here is fentanyl. We've had council members and activists try to prevent these homeless encampments from being closed. That makes it all the harder to get the necessary resources in order to close them, and then all the harder the next time that the homeless encampment moves to try to prevent that one from getting set up as well. So we got to be blunt, we got to be honest about what is happening right now. And, we have taken the compassionate and caring approach, but we also here need to be compassionate and caring to these surrounding neighborhoods that have been plagued with violence because of this drug trade. It's an issue, it needs to be addressed.
I was just going to say, if it is a fentanyl problem, what are some of the steps you're taking on that end?
Well, at least from the law enforcement side, we work with all of our federal, county, and state partners. And there has been significant seizures of fentanyl made both by Minneapolis police as well as all the law enforcement partners that are operating in this area, to include a significant arrest a couple months ago of folks who were bringing fentanyl from the border states, I believe Arizona, up into Minnesota. But the reality is, we don't have the ability to make all of the arrests possible to stop this from coming into this country. That's just the reality. A very, very small amount of fentanyl is capable of even killing someone. And it's incredibly cheap. It's incredibly lucrative for those who are smuggling it into this country. So that's part of what drives the issue is just, an inability to stop the illegal flow of fentanyl from just coming into the country to begin with. It's impacting communities all over the state, all over the country, but obviously it tends to be more pronounced and visible on the street in the way that you see in cities.
If they're illegal when they set them up, these encampments, are you in a position where as soon as you see one go up, do you go in there and make arrests if it's illegal so you don't have a situation like this repeat, or is that unrealistic?
The police do their best they can with smaller encampments when they are able to clear them. But the reality is a lot of these are more entrenched. And again, it goes back to being able to verify who the property owner is, and so on. I mean, it is a complicated issue. I don't know if you want to speak further.
I mean, there's both the law enforcement side, which is preventing these drugs from coming in to begin with, and also prosecuting the individuals that are dealing. And then there's also the health-based side, making sure that we've got prevention in place. There's education out there to make sure that people are aware of what they're consuming, what they're taking in. There's help and harm reduction efforts that are happening. And then finally, there's treatment and healing. And so, yes, we are pushing out all of that. And at the same time, again, this is a drug that is cheap. This is a drug that is plentiful, that is coming into the city at rates that we have not seen before. And again, this is not like crack. This is like 100 times stronger than crack, and has a huge impact on someone's ability just to control themselves, to make their own decisions. And so, again, I've heard from a number of people throughout the city, including council members, repeatedly, that we should not be shutting down these encampments. We should simply allow the encampment to exist continuously. That's not safe. That is neither safe for the people at the encampment, nor is it safe for the surrounding neighborhood. We need to be working together on a multi-jurisdictional basis, all of us, to make sure that we're providing, yes, housing and yes, shelter, and that these encampments are cleared, because it's not safe and it should not matter whose property it's on. This has got to be a collective effort here.
Chief, did you say that the 3 people who were detained were let go?
They have not, I don't believe they've necessarily been released, but we have ruled them out as suspects
So
in
are
the
there
murder.
any other
Correct.
suspects?
Yes. Yes, we are
known?
working to identify the individuals, yes.
Is there any believed connection between this and what happened yesterday?
We have not yet ruled that out. So yes, we are definitely looking into that as a possibility, for sure.
And who owns this property? Is this city owned?
I don't have that information. We can get that for you.
Trying to figure that out.
We're trying to figure that out between the railroad and the private property. We're trying to figure that out. And it's an example. I mean, there's places we go where we deal with these things, and part of it is transit, part of it is the county, part of it is DOT. It's just
Shouldn't matter is the
part of
answer.
the issue.
Shouldn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
It should all be a collective effort.
You're looking for, is it 1, 2, do you know?
I don't have that at this time. At least one.
And to be clear, we have asked for this to be a collective effort among all.
They were believed to have been residing at the encampment.
I don't have that. I don't know that for sure. Yeah.
And regardless of whether the individuals are residing at the encampment itself attracts a drug trade. The encampment itself is an open market for people that want to prey on others to go and make money. And so I've heard some say, well, was this directly related to the encampment because it wasn't necessarily a person that was staying there? That's besides the point. That's entirely missing the point. It is not a coincidence that these homicides are happening either right in or right next to a homeless encampment. To say otherwise is putting on blinders to the entire situation.
Sorry, I might have missed this, but how is fentanyl involved in this situation?
Fentanyl is very clearly a factor around homeless encampments. If you talk to residents who live in and around these encampments, they oftentimes, are walking over needles and all of these things, drug paraphernalia that's used as a part of, someone ingesting it. And it's just a unbelievably powerful and addictive and terribly, deadly drug.
Yeah.
It's so much different than what we'd experienced in the past around heroin and so on. It's so much worse.